So with the launch of Year 7 Season 2, we have been giving new season modifiers that have created some pretty fun metas for this season. Now, these right here are going to be my top 4 solo PVE builds you can make and definitely have fun playing the season, whether you guys are trying to do open world activities, playing the retaliations, fighting those kill squads. These builds will 100% work. Now, before we get into the full build breakdowns, what I decided to do with this video is I will actually show you the active modifier and the 3 passive modifiers I am going to be using on all 4 of these builds. Now remember, you can adjust these. You can play with the active modifiers you want, but these are gonna be the ones that I'm using for these 4 builds. We're gonna be showcasing a Heartbreaker build, 2 different versions of Striker builds, and even a Hunter's Fury build that I think a lot of you guys will enjoy. So let's get into the builds. So the active modifier I'm gonna be using for all 3 of these builds is Sanitation. The passive modifiers, I'm gonna go with Keep Out for the extra 20% movement speed when I kill those rushers. Rupert's Terror because it destroys all the tank's armor, and the Stepping Stone because it gives me amplified weapon damage by 20% when I eliminate hostiles with headshots. But let's get into our first build. So the Chatterbox has become one of my favorite exotic SMGs to run in Year 7 Season 2 due to the increased rate of fire from the seasonal modifier, and if you guys have the control points captured, that increase damage. This thing, if you know how to use it correctly, can be one deadly weapon. So the exotic weapon I am using is called the Chatterbox. Now we're gonna have SMG damage, crit chance, and damage sharks out of cover on here. Now the reason why this one is so good is because of the talent that Chatterbox has. When you reload, rate of fire is increased by 25% for each enemy within 15 meters for the duration of the magazine. Now this stacks up to 5 times, but what's even more impressive about this is when you do get a kill, it refills 50% of your magazine. Now, you might have noticed we are running the Strikers gear set, and the reason why is because of how the Strikers pairs up with the Chatterbox. Now, the Strikers set is going to give you 15% weapon handling. It gives you that 15% rate of fire, meaning we are firing this thing very, very fast. And then obviously you guys know Striker's Gamble. Weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up 100 times. And since we have such a high rate of fire, these stacks come quick. So let's get into the build. So for the mask, we are running a Striker's mask. This is going to have weapon damage, crit chance, and crit damage. For our second piece of Strikers, we'll have the knee pads with armor and crit damage. For our third piece of Strikers, we'll have the holster with armor and crit damage. Our fourth piece of Strikers is going to be the gloves with armor and crit chance. Now, some of you guys have been noticing I've been getting a chunk of armor on kill on this build, and that is because we are running 20% armor on kill. So it almost feels like if we were running a Hunter's Fury set. And the way we're able to pull that off is because we are running a Palisade chest piece that's going to give us 10% armor on kill. We have armor on this piece. We have critical hit damage. We do have headshot damage here. I would like to have crit chance there. We have critical hit damage right here, and then we do have obliterate. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. Now this does stack up to 20 times. Now you may be asking, well, that's only 10% armor on kill. Well, we are running the gunner class, and that's going to give us an additional 10% armor on kill, and I'll show you the stats in just a second. Now, most of you guys probably noticed every time we kill an enemy, we are dropping a trophy. And well, that's because we are running the Memento backpack. Probably one of the best pieces for solo players to complete a lot of content. Remember, this comes with weapon damage, skill tier, and armor, but it has a really nice talent called Kill Confirmed. Enemies you kill drop a trophy on death. Collecting trophies provides a short and long-term buff. So for this build, every time we pick up a trophy for 10 seconds, we'll get 10% weapon damage because we have 2 red cores. We'll get 50% bonus armor because we have 5 blue cores, and we'll get 5% skill efficiency because we have 1 yellow core. Now there is a long-term stack. Once you have full stacks, that's 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen. And that's why the Memento backpack is so powerful, because it's like having 3 talents in one bag, and for solo players, it's the perfect piece. Now, if you're in a group, yes, you can still run the Memento backpack, but again, you just gotta make sure you're getting those kills so you can collect those trophies. But once you're at full stack, you already have those 3 talents. So yes, it can work in a group, but again, most solo players prefer running the Memento backpack versus a different bag because of how many bonuses you get for running the Memento. And that's why for solo players, it becomes one of those pieces that you start to see in a lot of solo player builds. And as I am probably 90% solo, it's my go-to piece. For the stats, you can see that we have 58% crit chance, 132% crit damage, 78% headshot damage, and look at the armor on kill, 332,000. So this is the build right here, guys, if you guys have any questions. But let's get into our second build, which is probably one of my favorite builds to run on master difficulties, the Heartbreaker set. But I made a couple changes that I think a lot of you guys will actually enjoy using a new name piece that we got from this season. So let's get into it. So for the build, we are running the Heartbreaker 4-piece set. The 2-piece is going to give us 15% assault rifle damage and 50% LMG damage. The 3-piece is going to give us that 15% weapon handling. And the 4-piece is where Heartbreaker shines. It's called Heartstopper. Headshots apply pulse to an enemy. So you can either pulse the enemy with headshots, or you can use a pulse or a scanner drone. That's really up to you. Now, weapon hits on pulse enemies adds a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1.1% weapon damage to pulse enemies up to a max stack of 50. So that means you can have additional 50% bonus armor and 55% weapon damage, which is pretty good for such a tanky build. But we're actually going to improve these numbers in just a second. On the mask, we do have armor, crit damage, and then I decided to go with protection from elites on this build. Now, this is not my main account. This is my alt account, but I wanted to show you that this build does work on all accounts, even with not max rolls. But yeah, we have 11% protection from elites and 11.2% critical hit damage on the mask. For the chest, we have our second piece of Heartbreaker. This has armor, crit chance, and protection from elites. And we went with the chest piece because this is actually going to improve Heartstopper. It increases the max stacks for Heartstopper from 50 to 100. So this means we can have up to 100% bonus armor and 110% weapon damage at max stacks. And if you guys can keep the stacks up, that's where Heartbreaker shines, because that's a ton of damage you're getting straight from this. For our third piece of Heartbreaker, we went with the knee pads. We have armor, crit chance. For our fourth and final piece of Heartbreaker, we went with the gloves for weapon damage, crit damage. For the holster, we went with the new spot-on holster. The reason why is because this is going to give us a total of 38% accuracy, which is going to help with controlling the chameleon. Now we have weapon damage and critical hit damage. Again, if you really want to and add a little bit more protection from elites, that's where you could go with the improvised holster, where you could run weapon damage, crit chance, and then you could actually stack another protection from elites mod here. But it's really up to you. I really like this new brand set holster for this build. For the backpack, we did go with the Memento backpack. This is where we're going to get more of our damage, weapon damage, armor, skill tier we have here. We also have protection from elites here too. So again, more protection from elites on this build. And then we have kill confirmed. Now, the reason why kill confirmed is so good on a tanky build like this, where we're lacking a little bit of the damage, is because remember, when we have a full stack, we're going to get 30% extra weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen. Every time we pick up a trophy for 10 seconds though, we're also going to get 10% more weapon damage, 50% more bonus armor, and then also 5% more skill efficiency. So we're stacking a lot more damage with the Memento backpack with the tanky build, and that's where Heartbreaker really shines. Now, what I like to do is pair this with my favorite weapon, the Chameleon. The reason why is because the Chameleon pairs really well with high armor protection from elites builds, and I'll explain that right now. So the reason why Chameleon works so good with those high armor protection from elites builds is because of the way the talent works, adaptive instincts. So when you hit 30 headshots, I'm gonna gain 20% crit chance and 50% crit damage for 45 seconds. Now, if I hit 65 body shots, I'm gonna get 90% weapon damage for 45 seconds. And then if I hit 20 leg shots, I get 150% reload speed. That's why Adaptive Instincts works really good with those protection from elite builds, because you're gonna be lacking a little bit of crit chance. And I'm gonna show you my crit chance in just a second. But when we have this active, we're gonna have 20% crit chance and 50% crit damage on top of that. For my Chameleon, I do have 11% expertise in this, so I get 11% weapon damage, assault rifle damage, health damage, and damage sharks out of cover. Again, not a perfect rolled build, but that's why I wanted to show you this works even with not min-max builds. The stats, I'm sitting at 41% crit chance, but remember, with Adaptive Instincts, once we get those headshots, we'll be sitting at 60% crit chance. Now, we'll also have an additional 50% crit damage. That's where this build really shines, and I think sitting at 60% crit chance, 120% crit damage. Not only that, the extra weapon damage we're getting is great too. Now, you can see we're sitting at 1.6 million armor. We do have 164% armor on kill, and that's going to be because of the gunner class. We're sitting at 45% protection from elites. For your secondary, I highly recommend having an ACS 12 or the rock and roll, the name version. The reason why is because this is going to allow you to be able to stack Heartbreaker so much faster. You swap to this, you aim at the head, then you shoot the body, you build the stack. Once you have the full stack, then you can just focus using the Chameleon. I am going to be rocking the Crusader Shield, and then I'm going to have the Reviver Hive, which is going to be there. And that is the build right there, guys. A 4-piece Heartbreaker, protection from elites on all pieces, the Memento backpack, and then the Chameleon paired up with the ACS 12 or the rock and roll, really up to you. But that's enough with the Heartbreaker. I think it's time to get into our Chatter's Fury build. So have you ever wanted to activate rapid fire in the Division 2? Well, this season, you can have just that. We call this build the Chatter's Fury 2.0 because we put out a build like this years ago, and well, it's back and better than ever because of the way the seasonal modifiers work this season. And you pair that up with a good Chatter's Fury build, holy, this thing is shredding. So most of you guys have noticed I am running the Chatterbox, and the reason why is because the way the RPM from this seasonal modifier works has made slower rate of fire weapons a lot better. And we all know the Chatterbox initial rate of fire is a little slow, but with an additional 30% rate of fire that you can get, we're sitting at 1,105 RPM, and that's not including the Chatterbox talent, which really makes the Chatterbox shine. When you reload, rate of fire is increased by 25% for each enemy within 15 meters. Now, this can stack up to 5 times, so if you have 5 enemies, that's why this just absolutely obliterates. Now, if you notice, kills refill 50% of your magazine, so you have to be careful about spamming the weapon, but you can actually get a ton of insane amount of survivability because you never have to reload. Now, this comes with crit chance, 10 rounds in the magazine, 10% weapon handling, and 15% critical hit damage. Now, my Chatterbox does have 20% expertise, so I'm getting additional 20% weapon damage right there. We have SMG damage, crit chance, and damage to targets out of cover. For your secondary, you guys can absolutely run whatever you want. I have the Lexington for show. I am using the Chatterbox for this build. So we are running the Hunter's Fury. Now that's why we called this build the Chatter's Fury. This is the most updated Chatter's Fury build I have put out. Now you can actually add an extra blue to this build if you want to sit around 1.5 million. For the making of this video, I sat at 1.3. We're hitting about million crits. So we have 15% shotgun damage and 15% SMG damage for the 2-piece. The 3-piece gives us that 20% armor on kill. Now, you pair that up with the gunner class, that's 30% armor on kill, plus 50% health on kill. Now we go to Apex Predator. Enemies within 15 meters receive a debuff, amplifying your weapon damage against them by 20%. Now, when you kill a debuff enemy with your weapon, it disorients other enemies within 5 meters, amplifying weapon damage by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times to those. So that's why Hunter's Fury on this build has been an absolutely insane combination with the Chatterbox. If you go over to our stats, you'll see we have weapon damage, crit damage, critical hit damage mod. Now, if you want to go for 1.5 million armor, what you're going to do here is you're going to put on a blue and go with armor or critical hit damage. That's up to you. For the chest piece, I went with the Grupo Sombra chest piece for the 13% critical hit damage. We have weapon damage, crit chance, crit damage, and a critical hit chance mod right there. Obviously, we have Obliterate on her. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. So that's going to give us a total of 20% extra weapon damage on the build. We are running our second piece of Hunter's Fury, which will be the holster, and we have armor, critical hit damage here. For our knee pads, we have our third piece of Hunter's Fury. We have weapon damage, critical hit damage. And then our fourth and final piece of Hunter's Fury is going to be the gloves, armor, critical hit damage. And then you might have noticed we do have the stack. So we do have the Memento backpack with weapon damage, armor, skill tier, and critical hit damage. So this is actually one of the better survivability pieces for you solo players. Every time we pick up a trophy, we're getting 20% weapon damage. We're getting 30% bonus armor. If you guys want to add one more blue, that would be 40% bonus armor and 5% skill efficiency. Plus the long-term stacks. Once you pick up trophies, you pick up 30 of them, 30% weapon damage. We'll have 30% skill efficiency and 3% armor regen, and this can be continuously reset every time you pick up another trophy, so that 300 seconds will constantly stay alive. Very, very good piece. I am running the Crusader Shield just for the survivability. If I get in trouble, I proc it out. And then we have a Reviver Hive in case I go down. Stats, we have 56% crit chance, 156% crit damage, 70% headshot damage. We're getting 386 armor on kill, sitting at 1.2. Again, if you guys want more blues, you can add that, and that way you can have a little bit more survivability. Again, 1.3 million, 1.5 million. I feel like that is the sweet spot for this build. So if you guys want to run 1.5, that's perfectly fine. The numbers, damage numbers will just be a little bit less. But there you have it. The chat is free, and we have one more build, and it's going to be using one of my newest favorite ARs to use this season because of the extra rate of fire we get, the Mark 16. So if you guys are ready for that, let's dive into it because I think a lot of you guys want to see this one too. Now, the weapon we're going to be using is the tactical Mark 16. And with the gain of rate of fire from this season and the extra damage, this hard-hitting weapon is amazing. Now, I was using this on my Umbra conflict builds, and I decided to try it out this season as soon as it came out, and I fell in love. And the reason why is because the weapon already hits very hard, but with the gain of 30% rate of fire and then gain of an additional possible 30% damage, this thing is just shredding through enemies, even on legendary. But let's break down the full build. So I am going to be running a 4-piece striker. You guys know striker is pretty insane. And with this build, we're going to be sitting around 1.5 million armor. So yes, we are not running all reds. This season, I just don't think there's a reason why you need to run all reds, to be honest. We just have so much extra damage and the survivability is there. So for the 2 pieces of the strikers, you remember we're going to get 15% weapon handling, that 15% rate of fire, and then weapons gamma. Weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up 100 times. Now 1 stack is lost per second for 0 to 50 stacks, and then 2 stacks from 50 to 100. And when you're at full stacks with this striker build and with the season modifier stack, it's just absolutely melting everything. For the mask, we do have weapon damage on here, crit chance, and a crit chance mod. For our second piece of strikers, we have the holster, and then that's going to have armor and crit damage. For our third piece of strikers, we have the knee pads. That's going to be armor, crit damage. For our fourth and final piece of strikers are the gloves, and that's going to be armor and crit chance. So you see a lot of armor rolls already. For the chest, we have the Grupo Sombra chest for the 13% crit damage. We have weapon damage, crit chance, crit damage, and then a crit chance mod. I need to get this optimized. I just don't have the materials yet. But we have obliterate, critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. So that means we can get additional 20% weapon damage on this build from this talent alone. For the bag, we are running the Memento backpack for weapon damage, armor, skill tier, and then we have a critical hit damage mod. And by now, most of you guys know Memento is probably one of my favorite pieces to run. You can see we have 3 red cores. So for 10 seconds, every time we pick up a trophy, 15% weapon damage, 4 blue cores, 40% bonus armor, and 1 yellow core, 5% skill efficiency. Now, on top of that, we can get up to 30% weapon damage, 3% armor regen, and 30% skill efficiency. Reason why, as a solo player, Memento bag is probably the best in slot, hands down. So we do have 142,000 total damage, 929 RPM because of the seasonal modifier buff and our builds, 50 in the magazine, 75% headshot damage, and 31 optimal range. We have assault rifle damage, health damage, and damage to targets out of cover. I am running Killer. Killing an enemy with a critical hit grants 70% critical hit damage for 10 seconds. For my mods, I am running crit chance on all the pieces. So crit chance on the sight, crit chance on the underbarrel, and crit chance on the muzzle brake. That's 555. And then we have the sturdy extended mag for the 20 round magazine. Stats, we're sitting at 53% crit chance, 106% crit damage. Remember, we get 70% crit damage every time we get killer proc. So you add that on. So that's 176 crit damage, 75% headshot damage. And then we go to the stats. You'll see 147% armor on kill. That is going to be because the gunner class. And that's it right there. And that's the build right there, guys, that I have been running with the striker. You guys can run more blues. But that's going to wrap up this video. There are 4 solo builds there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed them. In the comments, let me know which one do you like the best after trying them out. See you guys in the next one. Until then, Nothing But Skills is out.